I like RPGs, or I should say, I like the idea of RPGs. I like the idea of controlling a character that lives in a narratively rich world and lives a lot of adventures, faces perils, gains glory and renown, and finds treasures and defeats dragons. Yes, when I think of an RPG, I immediately think of a fantasy setting. That's one of my favorite settings also. So I really like the idea of playing RPGs. The problem is that I don't like to play RPGs with other people much. I know that doesn't sound right, but what can I say? They don't do what I say. What kind of partnership is that supposed to be? So I'm always happy to play RPGs when I don't need to be around other people. I can just do what the heck I want. So I play solitaire RPGs, paragraph-based RPGs, and I was happy when I heard that Assault of Doomrock was a board game that had a strong RPG feel, an adventuring kind of feel. But at the same time was cooperative, so I could play with other people or not. I don't have to. Assault of Doomrock. Players or the player control a group of fantasy heroes in a fantasy world with a little bit of zaniness injected into it. There's a bit of humor here and there, and they're trying to assault Doomrock. They're traveling through this world and they are trying to reach Doomrock and to destroy the evil that dwells there. Let me show you how that is done in this game. In this game, players will control characters such as the Rogue, the Ranger, the Witch, Paladin, the Mage. What's a mage, some ask? It's like a wizard, just less cool. Or a warrior. Each character, and you can draw them randomly. I guess you can also just choose one. Who's going to complain if you do? Each character also has a trait, a personality trait, that you will draw and you will pair with the characters. So maybe in one game you have the stinky warrior, the next game will be the frustrated warrior, or the unstable rogue, the ridiculously armored rogue. Who knows? So there are very different variants of your characters that you can play from game to game. So you form your character by pairing the two cards, and as you can see, then there will be slots around the character indicating the things that the character can equip. There's a slot for an artifact, armor, and two slots, one for left hand and one for right hand. Each character also starts with some ability cards indicated by the class of the character. There is a deck of possible abilities to be had in the game. You also receive an ability because of your personality trait, and you put it there by the other ones. I'm not gonna look through the deck for that ability. Then you also get dice. You get a die for each ability card that you have. During the game, you will gain new abilities by leveling up, and each time they level up, you get a new card, and then that also means that you get a new die that you add to your dice pool. Health points, you have a default number of 6 health points. When you get wounded, you lose 1 or more, depending on the damage. You may recover, but if the health goes down to 0, then, well, that's pretty bad for you. And then, well, once you have your heroes, time to go on an adventure. You will form a deck of location cards using a good range of options that you have, and you will have cards from both the village, variety, wilderness, mountain. As you can see, they're differentiated by the back. You shuffle them together. At the bottom of the deck, you place a Doomrock card. There are two possible cards, you only use one. And yes, there are more location cards, these are not all. So that the set, the number and the type of locations that you have from game to game will be different. You have your deck of cards here, you reveal 3 locations, and the 3 locations that are available, that are visible face up, are the locations that the characters know of for now and that they can visit. Locations have a number printed there. When you reveal a location card, you also place a number of of clue markers on top of the card. Certain actions will make you spend those markers, and once all the markers are removed from a card, the card counts as fully explored. Before you begin exploring, though, you need to complete the setting by drawing a card from this deck, and that card will give you the general parameters of the game, of the scenario that you're playing. You have a title here giving flavor, indicating the general situation around which the players are working. There's a description of the situation, general rules that apply to that scenario, loot that indicates the type of loot that is to be found in that scenario, and battle reward, the type of reward that the players will gain from fighting and winning battles in that scenario. You also see that there is a number there. That number indicates the number of time markers that you will place on the card. Markers such as these ones. During the game, players will perform actions, and some of those actions are free, they do not require time. A lot of actions require the expenditure of a time marker. You can remove it, flip it, whichever. Point is, once you have used all of the time markers allowed to you by the setting, you can still perform any number of actions that do not require time, but as soon as you need to perform one such action, then instead of doing that, you fight a battle. In each game you will fight 3 battles. There is a deck of cards with some monsters level 1, some level 2, some level 3. You draw a monster for each level, and when you start a battle, you reveal that kind of monster. You set up the battle according to the instruction, and then you fight the battle. In order to win the game, you need to find Doomrock by the end of the game, and you need to survive the 3rd battle. So you need to find Doomrock, fight the 3rd battle, survive that one, and in that case you win the game. Now, during a turn, as I said, you can do several things. Your party can decide to travel. There is a party mark that you place to indicate the current location of your party. You spend a time marker, one of the markers that I showed you earlier, and you can travel to one face-up area. You can also visit the location in which you are. These locations have various options of things that you can do when you're there. You can go to the armory and get a shield. You can embark on a trivial quest and get a loot with a modifier +1 when you're rolling on the loot table. There may be a shop. Then you draw cards from the item decks. There is a deck for common items. Shields, weapons, potions, that kind of stuff. And then there is a deck for epic items, which are much cooler. So maybe there is a shop there, and you set it up by drawing items accordingly, and then here is the price in silver that you need to pay. So different locations will have different things that you can do, and you can visit each of these locations as many times as you want, as long as you can pay the price, which may be the price of buying something, or it may be a symbol. Many of these activities in the locations, you can see, have a symbol before them, and that is the cost. As long as you can afford to pay the cost, you can perform that action. For example, here you can visit the armor and get a shield marker, which will be useful in combat, but each time that you do so, you need to spend a clue, that is to spend one of those markers. Here you need to spend a heroism marker. This is a very useful resource which you can use to perform specific actions, and then also in battle that is pretty useful. You may have to spend time. That's one of the ways in which you spend time, maybe time and clues and so on and so forth. And some locations also have something written under the number of clue markers. That is the reward that the players receive if they explore the location completely. That is, if they remove all of the clue markers from the location. So you can travel, you can visit a location. Another action that you can do is to explore. You pay a time marker And then you draw a card from the event deck that applies to the type of location that you are visiting. So you use mountain events or wilderness events. You simply draw the card and you read the result, and you simply resolve the text. Stuff that you find, challenges, usually it is good stuff. It tends to be stuff that you find, or in any case things that maybe will inflict some peril on you, but will give you also the chance of gaining resources. Exploring is usually a good thing. Dr. Chamber, that doesn't sound right, but again, you're an adventurer, so you will enjoy all of these challenges and the benefits that you get from those. A common thing that will happen in the game, a penalty that you have to take, is called a peril. It is represented by a little skull there, and some of these actions you need to pay a peril, to face a peril. When that is the case, you simply draw a card for the location in which you are. Instead of reading the main text, you read the bottom, and you apply the result to the entire party. In this case, everybody loses a health point. As you can see, it's pretty generic. You do not know exactly what type of event caused that. Was it an attack of vampire bats or goblins, a trap? Did you fall in a hole? Nobody knows, but you did lose some health. You can also look for new areas. Maybe you are done traveling around here. In this case, you venture forth. That's another action that you can do. In order to venture forth, you pay 1 time. That's the wrong marker. In order to venture forth, you pay 1 time. You discard the leftmost area that is available, you draw a new location and you place it on the right of the available locations. You place the party marker there. Then you also suffer 1 peril from the new location in which you are, but you also encounter an event. So pluses and minuses. What's important is that you're visiting new locations, and that means you're getting closer to Doomrock. Time to resolve the battles. You will set up your battle following the instructions that you find on the battle card that you reveal, and depending on the number of players that you have, there will be a determined amount of monsters. Now, to represent the monsters, you use these generic markers. These markers represent any and all the monsters in the game. This battle they're a zombie horde, the next time they can be exploding tomatoes, dragons, goblins, tentacle monster, anything. Each enemy is represented by a pile of those tokens. So for 12 minions, it means you will need 12 piles, and monsters have a health point, have a token for each health point. That means 12 zombies with 2 health points each are represented by 12 little piles of 2 of such tokens, just like that. So you need to build those piles. We're not gonna do them all. Each character also has a token to represent the position of the character in the battle. And the characters and the monsters can be in 1 of 2 positions. It's a pretty fairly abstract system. They can be adjacent or not adjacent. That's it. But when you combine these things, it can mean that all of the characters are adjacent to one another in a single group. They can be alone, a group of 1, or they can form different groups. That can also apply to the monsters that can be adjacent to one another or not, and they can move during the game following certain instructions. And also that means that the monsters can be adjacent or not adjacent to some of the characters. Now, at the beginning of each combat round, and combat will last several rounds, each player rolls dice for their characters. You roll the dice, you have up to 2 rerolls, and then what you do is you can assign the dice to your skills. As you can see, your skills have numbers here that indicate the numbers that you can spend on the die to activate it. If you have a die with a 6, you can place it on this card here, and that means that later you will be able to use that ability. The card also tells you how many times you can use that ability, so I can place up to 2 dice here. You see that dash there, it means that the slash there means that I could place 5s or 6s on it. So you place your dice there. You can also spend 6s to purchase heroism marker, which I use to boost effects. You can use 1s to purchase shield markers, which will prevent a hit against you. Once you have assigned your dice and you're excited about using them, now you can't use them just yet, because the enemies get to activate first, unless there are some effects that will allow you to interrupt the normal flow of the game. But usually the minions activate. Characters have a number printed here in the top right corner. That's the threat level. Characters with a higher threat level are more interesting to the monsters, and they will be attacked first and more often. So the characters start activating monsters. Character with the highest threat activates 2 monsters. That usually means that those monsters will prepare or perform an attack against that character. Then the next player activates his character, activates 2 monsters, and so on and so forth. What happens when you're activating one of your enemies to attack you? You draw a card from this deck. Well, each class of monsters has a different deck. And this deck pretty much represents the AI of the game. So you reveal a card and you simply read the card top to bottom. So I choose a character, I choose an enemy that I'm activating as my enemy for this round of combat. And it says unless engaged, unless the enemy is engaging, moves to the character with the highest threat, then deal 2 damage to the highest adjacent threat. So I move and or attack according to the instructions, then I reveal the card. And here it says, unless engaged, move to the active hero, and then this zombie, and up to 1 adjacent zombie, steal 1 die from adjacent active hero. And so on and so forth. Activate, attack, lose health. Expose markers, just to make the combat system and the game in general a little more fiddly. These can be added to your characters because of various game effects as penalties, and during combat these are revealed. Very often monsters will add you more of these markers, and when you reveal them, these markers give you negative effects that you have to apply. There are also ways that some of the characters have to manipulate those, for example, to redirect the exposed markers against the monsters, and to use them to catalyze, to boost, to fuel some magic effects. It's just an extra wrinkle to the design. But the general thing is that you draw cards to activate the monsters one by one. Once every character has activated enemy monsters, then finally the characters get to act and they get to spend their dice to perform actions. And well, then you simply read the card for the action that you're performing and you perform the attack. For example, here, when I'm performing this attack with the warrior, I deal 3 damage to adjacent character. Damage can be prevented by shields and reduced by armor factors. As you can see, that's the marker for heroism. This is one of the many effects, many reasons why heroism is important. In this case, if I decide to spend an heroism marker, I can also add 1 damage to my attack. Pretty simple. Remove dice as you perform actions, and you perform actions to damage the enemies. Once that is done, once the heroes have acted, the round is over, and you repeat the procedure during the next combat round. Roll the dice, activate monsters, activate heroes. Repeat until you have won the battle, or you lost the battle, for example, all of your heroes are defeated in that case. Well, I guess you guess what happens when all of your heroes are defeated, right? Now, I like the general feel of the art, of the text in the cards. There is a little bit of zaniness, a little bit of humor injected here and there. Reminds me of Terry Pratchett's novels. I like that. It's not as common in fantasy. When we're talking about fantasy, at least I often have this mixed feelings, because it's such a worn out genre. There are just the dragons and the elves and the dwarves and the wizard. At the same time, I'm drawn to fantasy precisely because I like that stuff. So there is this this tension here, I want the stuff, but I've seen it so many times. And having that little bit of humor is a nice way to me to reinvent some of the most commonly used tropes of fantasy. I like the adventure system very much. I like the adventure part. It is exactly what I'm looking for from an RPG that I don't have to play with other people. Okay, I'm joking here in case you worry. I don't mind playing RPGs with other people. I like to have the solitaire option, which I can have here. But I really think that it works. It really it's great. The options that you have are interesting. You have to flesh out the story. If you had a real Dungeon Master, of course, then the Dungeon Master could do that. You have to see in your mind what that type of quest means. You have to create a little bit of story when it comes to the perils, which are just penalties. But when you're exploring the locations, then the things that you can do in each location make sense. They do create a story. It's nice to find new locations, and it's not the resource management challenge that you have when you're trying to balance time, especially because there are only so many things that you can do. You want to become strong, but you also need to progress forward. So choosing how much time to spend in each location is really key. The location and the order in which you encounter the locations will change from game to game. That adventure part is really good. I think there is a system that has a lot of promise here. For that part of the game, I hope there's a system that will be used in other similar games. What I have a problem with, and that to me kind of spoils the experience of playing the game, is the combat system per se and how that affects the overall pace of the game. Because when I'm playing an RPG, when I'm playing an epic adventure, I like to have a couple of battles here and there, not just to look at the clock and know that the battle is coming in 2 hours or so, and then I'm just rushing, gathering the stuff that I can find, wearing my stuff, and then the battle starts. The dangers that you encounter outside of the battle, they're not all that dangerous. And that's good, because if you were bashed by the world and then bashed in the battles, then there really wouldn't be much for you. That would be a masochistic game to play. So you need that part in which you are restoring your energies and you are gaining new artifacts and skills, and then you put all that to the test in the battle. But the two parts of the game are completely separate from the point of view of the tone, of the feel, of the mechanics. It's almost two games just pasted together. I would have liked it better if there were more battles, smaller battles, better disseminated throughout the adventure, which sure, some peaks, some progression, some arching overall experience, bosses here and there. But the feel that I have is like we're strolling around this strange world, look at treasure, look at damsel in distress, merchants, let's trade some stuff. And then all of a sudden, 200 zombies are attacking us! Oh my gosh, the head of the wizard just fell! Oh my gosh, somebody is eating the warrior! And then, oh, okay, we survived. That's good. Oh, look at that nice merchant. I think I'd like to purchase an epic item. I'll trade your common item. Oh, look, gnomes and elves. Let's sing a song together. And then again, the terrible stuff. It's weird. It's in a sense, one half of the game, which is these battles, which are really long compared to what a battle resolution I feel it should be, they feel like interruptions. I feel excited to go back to the world and explore and see new places and see how to manage the time and figure out how much time I can spend consulting a wizard or looking for an artifact or trying to defeat the evil in a mine. Oh no, but now there are 20 zombies or 14 exploding tomatoes. I like those. But there are many, and it takes a while. And combat resolution is so laborious for each character. There is a card that you have to follow. Great, there is a surprise that each enemy will act individually. But it just puts such a burden on the pace of the game. And when you have the adventure, which is so snappy, so fluid, it flows so well, then all of a sudden I feel like, okay, here we are again, battle. By the time I've set up the battle, I'm already tired. Big problem to me. The battle doesn't work because of how foreign it feels compared to the rest, and to me also it just doesn't work much because it is, how can I put it, both a little too abstract and not enough abstract. If the battle was, this is the armor of the opponent, this is the health points, roll the dice, add all the modifiers, roll twice, 3 times, that would be very abstract. But still, it would give me a payoff for all the resources that I managed to put together. If it was more tactical, I'd be very happy. Then move and find the right angle, range, you move that direction, I cover you, you heal, while I throw something at the monster, etc, etc, etc. I like tactical games, I'm okay with abstract resolution. Somehow here, just somewhere in between that doesn't feel much, it has a strange flavor, or maybe not much flavor, just the 2 flavors. It's not tactical enough that I want to think of things about things tactically, but not that tactical to really be exciting. Not abstract enough to allow the resolution to move fast. It's just there in a gray zone between the abstract and the tactical that I had to say somehow really does not appeal to me. To me, this is a game, half of which is great, half of which I don't like at all. And that's a problem, because without combat, then the game really is too easy. There isn't really much. I don't know how that could be fixed by simplifying the battles, but then you would also need to add some other smaller battles. To me, that should have been the way to go. At least, hey, people enjoy like this, love it like this, that's great. A game with a better balance between adventuring and fighting would have been something that I would have loved. I started adventuring and I just loved it. To me, it all fell apart as soon as a combat against more than 10 enemies started. Pity. Doomrock, Assault on Doomrock, I hope you like it. If you decide to give it a try, maybe you like what you saw in this review. To me, this, personally, to my personal taste, is just a missed opportunity. A game that I could have liked very much, but as is, I don't think this is a game that will hit the table very often in the future, if ever.